Today we are learning about the circumstances in which information surreptitiously obtained will give rise to an obligation of confidence. This video will not examine the separate topic of government information. To understand this topic, it is firstly important to understand what a breach of confidence is and when it arises. An obligation of confidence is an equitable doctrine which protects a range of interests including trade secrets, consumer and commercial information. An obligation of confidence arises where one person imparts to another private or secret information, based on the express or implied understanding that the communication is for a restricted purpose. 3 elements are required to prove a breach of confidence. 1. Confidential information, 2. Obligation of confidence, and 3. Breach. Confidential information must have a quality of confidence or relative secrecy. In other words, the information must not be in the public domain. Creative information will be protected if it includes sufficiently developed concepts or ideas. An obligation of confidence arises where a reasonable recipient of information would understand that the information was provided based on the understanding that it would not be shared. An obligation can arise by agreement, by the nature of the parties' relationship, due to the particular subject matter and circumstances of communication, and where the information was obtained surreptitiously. We will return to the discussion of surreptitiously obtained information shortly. Where a recipient discloses confidential information without consent for a purpose other than what it was disclosed for, there will be a breach of confidence. This disclosure may be actual or threatened, and intention is not required. There is no requirement that detriment be suffered. However, detriment often includes loss of commercial advantage, ability to exploit, embarrassment, and exposure to discussion and/or criticism. To apply these elements, imagine a person called Sam works on special effects in movies. The footage he has access to is likely confidential information as it is not available to the public prior to the release date. An obligation of confidence would arise here through contract, specifying that he is unable to use this information for purposes outside of editing. If Sam then shared the footage with a magazine company to make additional profits for himself, he would be in breach. Surreptitiously is defined to mean in a way that attempts to avoid notice or attention, secretively. Considering our previous example, if Sam instead obtained copies of film footage by breaking into the studio, he would have obtained this information surreptitiously. An obligation is imposed in these types of circumstances due to the unconscionable nature of the acts committed by the defendant. While a secret can be used if it was discovered through reverse engineering or independent research, use of information surreptitiously obtained will be restrained through equity where reasonable precautions have been taken to ensure its secrecy. The best way to understand these requirements is by looking at some case examples. In Franklin and Giddens, Giddens trespassed to obtain clippings from Franklin's commercially advantageous nectarine tree. Here, an obligation of confidence was imposed even though Franklin did not provide the information himself. Giddens had acted unconscionably and thus an obligation of confidence was imposed. In Shelley films, photographs taken with a film set were found to be confidential as strict precautions including signage had been taken to prevent unauthorized photographs. So, what have we learnt today? An obligation will be imposed if information has been obtained through surreptitious means where reasonable precautions have been taken by the plaintiff. These reasonable precautions often include physical barriers, signage, verbal instructions, and selective admittance. Thank you for listening.